Hello and welcome back to Overtime Hockey Talk. I am Mark and this is Justin, and we are here doing the second half of the Central Division preview. We are going to hit the remaining four teams: the Nashville Predators, St. Louis Blues, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Winnipeg Jets. If you missed episode part one of the Central Division preview, that's the Blackhawks, the Avalanche, the Stars, and the Wild. Go over, check that out, and subscribe to the show wherever it is you listen to podcasts. And Justin, we're going through the second half of this Central Division. The Nashville Predators, 100% the most mind-blowing offseason maybe for any team that we've seen in some years.
Yeah.
Like, they had a fun offseason. They completely changed their team this offseason.
Yeah, when's the last time you've heard of a team that's added two 40-goal scorers to their roster in free agency, right? Never.
And a top four defenseman and a backup goalie, and they re-signed their star goalie to a long-term deal. What an offseason for this team. And they were able to re-sign Alexander Carrier as well, who has been with the Predators. They signed him before, and he's been really good for them, playing that kind of checking role. A really, really good offseason for Barry Trotz. I think this is his second offseason as general manager.
Yeah.
And he absolutely, like, knocking it out of the park isn't even a good enough analogy.
Yeah.
This is like when Gary Bonds would hit a ball so far into the water in San Francisco and 53 kayaks just tried to surround the ball. That's this kind of offseason that Barry Trotz just had. So as far as the player, Scott Wedgwood, backup goalie, signs Alexander Carrier a 3-year deal worth $3.75 per year. Jonathan Marchessault signs a 5-year deal, $5.5 million. They keep the cap hit low because clearly, let's face it, the Predators are not necessarily looking at this situation going, like, now that you've got Marchessault, you've got Brady Shea coming in, you've got Steven Stamkos signing a 4-year, 4x8 deal, and Saros re-signs. Everything just shifted from, the Predators might need to rebuild to screw the rebuild. Let's go. Let's go, Dad. We're going to try and win the Stanley Cup. Like, did a window just randomly open?
I think so. I think you can see
they left the window open for a burglar to get in there, and a window just opened. How often have we seen a team that's about to go into a rebuild and 2 years later, it looks like they might be able to compete for a Stanley Cup?
I think that's fair to say, right? You've got every piece when you look at teams that compete for a Stanley Cup, right? You've got two good forward lines, right? Now it's Stamkos and Marsh. So they clearly have that because they were very top heavy with that line of Forsberg, Riley, and Goose last year. So now they've got that. They've got a star defenseman in Roman Josi, and now they've got depth on defense, which don't get me wrong, Ryan McDonough was okay last year, but this just is a whole new Brady Shea. It's just a whole nother level of defenseman. And Alexander Carrier is an improvement on that as well. And so you bring in those guys and you still get UC Saros, who to me is still a easy top 10 goaltender in this league. No concerns, no issues where I look at, maybe they could use another top 6 forward, or maybe they need a top 4 defenseman. Don't have any of those issues. Now, maybe those guys aren't as sexy as like a Colorado. You look at their top 4 defense, right? And then you look at Nashville's and you say, okay, Roman Josi's there, but outside of that, it's not as sexy. But still, they have pieces where you look at them and you could say they can compete.
Yeah, I guess the only thing we center position to the Predators is like, hey, at the and Ryan O'Reilly, could Ryan O'Reilly that's where they're weak. O'Reilly, Sissons, Novak. Guys goes down, what else you could find, because it's not super pretty as far as what's there. I think with the Predators right now, they've got $11.8 million in buyouts to work cap. So that's maybe another thing to go, wow, how are they doing this when they basically have the same amount of money that the Minnesota Wild have tied up in buyouts, but they just went out and signed all these free agents.
Hey, taxes, man.
It is very impressive. Yes, yes, the taxes help and get some guys on cheaper deals, but yeah, it's just with the Steven Stamkos signing, I do think that maybe when all is said and done, we wrap it up. I think there's a chance that I'd love to hear the actual story behind here's why we did sign Stamkos because 4 times 8 for a guy that just put up huge points, it doesn't sound bad. You know, he's still a great player in this league. I'm I still am borderline in shock that Tampa Bay didn't make this happen. It is a Tampa Bay move. It's like a very Julian Breezeball to be like, "Don't care, I don't think you're gonna be good in 3 years, so not signing you to that deal."
Yeah, and
And that
the thing was is analytics, right? The numbers say that Jake Gensel was the better player, right? He was the guy to make the play on if you're going to spend that kind of money. And so I, on one hand, I applaud them for making that move to say, you know what, we're going to say goodbye to our longtime captain, Stanley Cup winner, this 40 goal scorer, because we want to bring in a guy who analytically looks better on paper. And a lot of people will still argue Stamkos is just mostly power play specialist at this point in his career, but I still think he has something to give. I still think he's a competitive player. And if you put him on a second line, you don't have him have a lot of responsibilities defensively. He can go out there and produce, I think, for a team like Nashville. That that really needed the depth at the forward group. And then two, to your point, when you mentioned about the center, the lack of center depth, people forget Stamkos played center to start his career in Tampa. So if he had to
true.
fill in for 20 games at the center position, he'd probably do okay.
It's true. Do it. He could do it. I think Philip Forsberg played center for a little bit
He
too,
can, yeah.
here and there. So, I think they're better on the wing, obviously, but I look at this team, and you go Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Ryan O'Reilly, Nyquist. I look at this top 6 and I go, "This is a top 6 that nobody wanted." And
Springs, Vegas, baby.
now these yes, that's what I was thinking that, man, these guys have to be good, and even Brady Shea to some extent, there was a little bit of, I don't know if he's as good as this guy, like, this team might be that, like, oh, you like, can you not see Stamkos going, "Oh, you think that I'm just a power play guy? Your analytics don't show you that I'm good anymore? Here we go, baby," and,
Yeah.
like, this team could rip. This team really could rip. I hope they do. I hope that this isn't, "Oh, ooh, yeah, some of those teams were right not signing them because this is a disaster." I hope that because doesn't this feel like you were playing NHL 25 and you traded for a bunch of, "Oh, that guy's easy to trade for," and you just bring in a bunch of, like, 88s, and suddenly your crappy team is much better and you can go and win the cup? But that's how this team feels, a little bit of a cast-off vibe, and I hope they run with that.
And look
I
at
hope
their
that
head coach, Andrew Burnett, right? He gets the most out of guys, i.e. Huberdeau. So maybe he squeezes a little bit more juice.
another cast-off.
Another cast off.
Florida was like, "Oh, you helped us? Oh, nah, let's get rid of him." Which, hey, in fairness for Florida, it was the right move because
It worked out.
Paul Maurice is a freaking god. Okay, where do you have Nashville ultimately falling in the Central?
I mean, we can obviously at the end of the show, we'll give our full standings predictions, but for this division. But for me, I think they're easily in the top 3 conversation, making the playoffs. Whether or not they get home ice advantage is another issue because I think for this team, there's going to be, I think, some early roadblocks, road bumps, whatever you want to call them, because these are guys, a lot of guys like Marchessault, Stamkos, they had played together before. So it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, to gel. But I think ultimately after 10, 15 games, they'll have their mojo. They'll have it going. And who knows, maybe, again, you go back to that Misfits, the Outcast persona. Maybe they just come out right out of the gate firing. Maybe I'm completely wrong. And they just say, F you, and we're just going to come out and start putting up a 5 spot every night.
Yeah, I think this team, though, might not be a super entertaining regular season team. This might be like, yeah, hey, we get it. We scored our 2 power play goals and we grinded the rest of the game and Saros saved our ass a couple times and yeah, here we go. This is how we're going to win games. We're going to get to the playoffs and we're just going to keep playing the exact same way into the playoffs. But also, you consider Stamkos, you consider a Ryan O'Reilly. These are all guys who have done it before. They've won Stanley Cups. They've gone on deep runs. They understand that you need to do well enough in the regular season, and then come playoff time, you click it up to a next level. Otherwise, maybe you don't have the next level come playoff time and you fall off because you've been playing at this crazy pace all
Mm,
year. Uh, so that's why I think this team falls somewhere in the wild card. I think they'll be just happy to toil around and keep themselves in the conversation, move between the 3 and the wild card, and they'll be there in the end. And they're not gonna worry about going and chasing tops in this division because it doesn't matter to them. They're just gonna get into the playoffs.
right.
Okay, St. Louis Blues. Hey, love what the Blues did. They go and they sign Alexander Texier. They go and they do their 2 RFA offer sheets with Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. They grabbed Matthew Joseph. What else did they do? Kasperi
Ryan
Kapanen. They
Sutter.
re-signed Buchnevich, which was I think a lot of people thought they would trade Buchnevich, and hey, I think he signs 6-year, $8 million deal per year. They go out and they do what is mind blowing to the rest of the league. They only sign Ryan Suter to a 1-year deal. No one's ever done that before. Do you know that? No one's ever signed Ryan Suter to a 1-year deal, but they finally did it. They finally figured out that's what you got to do. So, yeah, the St. Louis Blues, they fill out their roster, but in a different way with younger players by doing the 2 offer sheets, the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe this is a team that can bounce back from last year. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou both had down years last year, and I think that they may have done enough at least to provide some depth throughout the organization to make them a bubble team. We feeling bubble team with these guys?
Yeah, I could go bubble team with them. Listen, you always get a little boost, right? Drew Bannister, new head coach in there. The Craig Berube era is gone. I'm a little skeptic with this team to see what we're going to get in a full year of Drew Bannister. But don't get me wrong, I love a lot of the pieces you mentioned. I love guys like Brady Shen, Radek Vaska, Brandon Saad. All these guys are good. Is it enough, right? Do these guys just gel together and produce enough for you to really say, but you can have a team full of 40, 50-point guys. You got to have some guys that can push the needle a little bit. As long as Kyrou and Thomas don't get off to slow starts this season, I think this St. Louis team could be a one that pushes. The only big question mark I really have, if I'm being honest, is back on defense, right? When you've got Nick Leddy as your top 2 defensive pairing guy and we lost Torrey Krug for the entire year, I'm not sure what we're going to have out of this St. Louis back end this season.
I'm wondering if Broberg is your guy who's moving up with Parayko.
Need him enough
That
to say, yeah, top 4 guy.
Yep, definitely, and somebody's gonna have to play that left side, and Scott Perunovich maybe gets the opportunity to slot up, and then no way Ryan Suter's playing that high up in the lineup. Uh,
He's a
Although he could still probably play 40 minutes a night, it just wouldn't be a very good 40 minutes. And then, of course, the other question mark, Binnington, how well does he play? Can Joel Hofer push him again for some playing time? He had a pretty good year last year, 914 save percentage through 30 games. And I think you're definitely looking at him to hopefully take a step. And then I think Binnington, if he only has to play 40 games, I think that he could be pretty decent. So I think you maybe see, hey, he played 50 and 30, but I think if you could get that a little bit closer together, I think maybe I'm not worried so much about the goaltending, knowing that Joel Hofer is behind Binnington and you can slot him in there and he'll play well. Can Kyrou and Thomas, are they number 1 top line players or are they just top 6 guys who need help? That's going to be the question that gets answered this year because 2 years ago you went, these guys are top line guys. Last year you went, I don't think so. And this is going to be the make it or break it. They're just not like they're not going to get paid still, but I think this year is going to be the year that you go, can we rely on these guys or do we need to figure something else out? All right, where do you have the Blues slotting in? You think that is there a chance they get the wild card spot or are they you think that they're far and away from that still?
This one's a coin flip for me, but I think ultimately they're going to be a bubble team. Whether or not they get a wild card position, I think is solely going to depend on if we can get repeat performances from Binnington and Joel Hofer. They get a good goaltending tandem. which I think they're more than capable of doing as long as they produce enough. I think with the additions of Holloway and Broberg, um, and of course, hoping that Cairo and Thomas have good starts this season, I think they can push for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. I look at the Pacific Division and I still go, I don't know if there is 4 teams in there that will make the playoffs. There's still a chance 5 teams from the Central could make the playoffs too. So I think given that, St. Louis will be a bubble team, probably somewhere, you know, I'd put them in like the 91, 92 point kind of range, and then can they do they lose a couple extra, win a couple extra, and they're either in or out. That's probably the likely scenario for the Blues for me. All right, let's go to the Utah Hockey Club. First year for this team in Utah, and new ownership, new building, only a few polls in the way of people watching the games, so shouldn't be too bad. They did just go out and sign Robert Bertuzzo to a 1-year deal, basically league minimum. They didn't do a ton in free agency. Kevin Stenlund, not any big names that uh, move the needle at all. It's nice that they signed a Ginla, but it's just the son. So he hasn't, we don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer yet, but Utah coming into this year going, let's see really what we have and let's see the development of our younger players and go from there. Like that's, yes, they traded for John Marino at the draft. That was a good, decent pickup. John Marino's bounced around the last few years between New Jersey and Pittsburgh, and he hasn't found his footing since being traded from Pittsburgh.
He's such an enigma to me.
But
It cracks me up. Like he'll get some playing time. People get really excited about him, and then the following year they're just trading him off. No, we changed our mind. No thanks.
I'm seeing. Sorry, this is super random. There's no way that this is correct.
Super random.
Something on Puckpedia. Okay, I was just making sure that it wasn't wrong. On here it says IR head Brian Little expected return September 15th, 2024. It was like there's no way. Oh, it also says the same thing for Shea Weber. That's funny. I just was like, no, there's no way he's not coming back. He's been basically retired. Sorry. But yeah, yes, sorry, John Marino, an enigma. Yes. He's good and then he disappears from the conversation. So really that probably means that he's like a number 5 defenseman. He's good enough to slot up for a little bit, but in reality, like he needs to play against lesser competition.
Yeah.
And that's probably John Marino.
And I think they helped
What do you
this
think?
offseason too. Brought in Sergachev. They got Sean Dursey re-signed. Those are going to be obviously your top 2 guys. And Vermelka, I like, or Balamaki, I'm sorry. I like him on the back end as well. I think they've got a decent defense up there. And even Ian Cole, I could see him moving up and down and taking some minutes on some games. But again, they put John Marino in a good situation now where I'm hoping he doesn't have to feel the pressure of being a top 4 guy if they don't want him to be.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. And hey, we're about to find out Mikhail Sergachev all by himself, no Hedman. And he's done it without Hedman before. Hedman's had some injuries. He's proven he is a top defenseman. It'll be interesting to see what he does. He's now on an island by himself here in Utah.
And let's face it.
What is he going to do?
That forward group up front for Tampa, way better than what he's got in Utah right now.
Yes, Clayton Keller, pretty much. Hey, Clayton Keller, but then you're like Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther. What do they do? And we don't really have an answer for that. We know, hey, Logan Cooley's got some flashes. He had 44 points last year, a really good rookie season. But how does that translate to actually being good? Dylan Guenther, 35 points in 45 games. I think you're really excited for Guenther to come in and see what he can do over the course of an entire season. It's basically a 70-point season almost. Can these guys come in and take another step? If you have Cooley and Guenther taking another step and you have both of them up above 60, 70 points, this team's got a shot. Maybe the same as St. Louis.
Yeah.
They might be in that conversation. Hey, there's a scenario where I can see them finishing just above Chicago. There's another scenario where you could go, "Oh, wow, everything clicked and pieced together, and now they're fighting for a bubble playoff spot."
I think to me, it's going to ultimately depend on the back end and goaltending, what they get. Because look at this team was able to score 256 goals last year, which, I mean, look, Winnipeg scored 259 and managed to, again, put themselves in a 2 spot in this division.
With the Vezina
Right.
trophy winning goaltender. That's,
Yeah, they don't obviously have that on the one between the pipes, but I think, again, those additions I mentioned with Sergachev, getting Sean Durzi, a full year of him in there and those sort of things, hopefully figure it out. I think this team could improve a little bit defensively, and maybe with the addition again of guys like Josh Doan and some of those other youngsters, maybe taking another step defensively. You hope that maybe this team again brings that goals against down a little bit more, and then ultimately they could score enough, in my opinion, to potentially push for a playoff.
this is the first time that I'm interested in watching the
Oh,
the Utah Hockey Club. First time in a long time. Well, I guess they're actually not the same team, right? This is an expansion team. I'm sorry. The expansion team, Utah Hockey Club.
it was.
I'm confused. Okay. With that said, hey, their bubble team, they've got question marks. So do the Blues. So do the Wild. Those are probably the three. Maybe they could do something, and someone's going to break through. One of those three likely to break through. I think if there's one team that we're worried about taking a step backwards, who could enter into that fold is probably the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets had a really good year last year, a really good year. Everything went well for the Winnipeg Jets. Connor Hellebuck wins the Vezina. Can he win the Vezina again? Do they need him to win the Vezina in order to make the playoffs? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Or like, not necessarily win the Vezina, but have that kind of season.
I would agree with you because you look at what this team, again, only scoring 259 goals there last season, but the thing was they were keeping the puck out of the net. I think it was 31, 32, something around that number, games in a row where they were letting in two or fewer 5 goals against. It was crazy.
Yep.
So they're going to get the defense from this team, but at the same time, is their defense maybe a little bit worse now? They lose a guy like Brandon Dillon, obviously Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk. We know what we're getting out of those guys, but the rest of the defense to me is a little sus, if I'm being honest.
Yes. The defense is a big question mark. I don't know. The Jets seem to be this team that go, let's sign who we can, which, to be honest, this offseason really wasn't anything at all. They didn't really make any moves as far as going out and trying to sign people. Of course, they trade Rutger McGroarty to Pittsburgh. They brought in Dylan Coughlin from the Hurricanes. Like they go and they make a few trades, but nothing that was needle moving. So pretty much this is the same team coming back for the most part. And what did the Winnipeg Jets do? They wait until December and they go out and they make a move. They make a trade and they bring somebody in who can fill the hole that they need filled, which for this team now, it's defense. Like I would suspect that they'll be in and around any defenseman that's available to try and bring them in and shore this group up. I do think the one big benefit, Kyle Connor missed 17 games last year. So to have a healthy Kyle Connor all year long, Nicholas Ehlers really struggled not having Kyle Connor there. I think that's probably what you're looking at. Like maybe there's the improvement with just staying healthy, being able to score some more goals. And then you got to re-sign Cole Perfetti. He's an RFA and he still has yet to be signed. And Cole Perfetti, I think he's the answer to me for your goaltending or for your goal struggles. Yes, he had 19 goals in 71 games, but he barely played. Like he was not put in situations to really score. We're not given the amount of ice time to go out and knock your socks off. I think that he's a 30, 35 goal scorer given normal ice time for a top 6 forward. So a healthy Connor, Cole Perfetti actually getting ice time and being put into the right situations, which is also going to elevate Ehlers. I think there's your solution for an extra 15 to 20 goals.
You hope so. I think Gabe Velarde's going to take another step. I think again, you get a full year of him being healthy. I think he's more than capable of being a 30-plus goal scorer. put up 70 points. But the concern I have is who is playing second line center to this team, right? You lost Sean Monahan, who I think
This is always what happens.
fit like a glove. So now your number 2 center might end up being Vlad Nemestikov, which to me is very concerning. Maybe Gabe Velarde he moves between the wing and center a lot. So maybe he fills in on that second center spot permanently. And then the other question mark is if you're Winnipeg, I've heard, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Nicholas Ehlers wants out of Winnipeg. He doesn't want to re-sign. He's a UFA after the season. So at what point, maybe it is December like they typically do, they pull a trigger on Ehlers and bring in a top 4 defenseman, maybe do a one-on-one swap, Casey Middlestat, Bowen Byram kind of thing. But maybe they move him out to bring in somebody else, or maybe to bring in a second line center at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's face it, second line center, this has been a conversation back to the Paul Stastny trade.
Oh, Stastny.
They grabbed Paul Stastny from the St. Louis Blues,
Yes.
and that was the first time that they traded for him, and that's just always been their issue. They've always been looking for somebody behind Mark Scheifele. They go out and they trade, and that's generally what they do, and I would suspect that they do something like that again. They'll wait till someone becomes available. Maybe one of these teams who is a bubble team struggles early on, and they just go, hey, like we can make this move with Winnipeg, and we can trade, a mid-level guy who Winnipeg's interested. That would be the likely scenario to me. So they'll go out and they'll trade because nobody wants to sign there anyways. Too fucking cold.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Sorry. Goaltending wise, I do what they did bringing in Kaapo Kähkönen and Eric Comrie. I know both those guys didn't have great seasons last year. Comrie especially, 874 save percentage in 10 games. Kaapo Kähkönen played 37 games. The 6 with New Jersey were really good. The 31 with San Jose at an 895 save percentage with the San Jose Sharks, who were absolute dumpster fire last year, is pretty solid. So I think he'll be a decent replacement for Brossoit, who they lose. I think the reason that they went out and signed 2 other goalies as well. I wonder, are we going to start seeing, hey, not only are we going to not have Hellebuck play, 65 games, let's have him play 55 if they can still get into the playoffs playing 55. Let's not dress him. I think we're going to start seeing that. There's enough teams with 3 goalies on their roster where there's just why dress a guy? Why make him go through warm-ups and do all these things and use his body and sit there on the bench? Just let him not play. Give him an actual night off. I think there's a chance that maybe a few times in the year that they do that with Hellebuck.
Yeah, no, I absolutely 100% agree. I think it's time, like I mentioned earlier in the show, it's time to start lowering his games played every year because it's going to start to take its toll. And don't get me wrong, you can sign all the goaltenders you want at $9 million. Eventually, you got to start giving them some time off. You got to give them a break. You got to give them relief because today's NHL.
Go talk to
Florida
about what they did for Bobrovsky and look at what it did. It took him from Bobrovsky was winning Vezina trophies too. And I know he went to Florida. He struggled in the beginning, and it's not the exact same situation. It's more like, look, every time he gets to the playoffs, he's struggling because he's played these tough games all year. So just drop him a little bit. And I say just all you got to do is 5 games. He doesn't even dress. Tell him just not even to come. Stay home, hang out with your family, watch the game on TV.
Okay.
That's what I'd be doing. I know it'd be sitting in the press box or something, or just, bring your kids and watch the game from the press box or from our box. Have it be a little bit different. Get to watch the game with your dad or something.
There you go.
That's what but okay. Winnipeg Jets, where do you think they're going to fall?
Yeah, fall is the key word, right? How far do they fall? I guess it really, for me, it all depends on how soon they act on getting a number 2 center or how well does a guy like Gabe Velarde fill in. But I think as much as I'd love to say Hellebuck's going to have as good of a season as he did last year, I think ultimately they're not going to be as good defensively. Just losing a couple pieces on the back end and giving him some nights off, I think they'll take a hit to their goals against there. But I'm hoping, like we talked about earlier, a full year of Kyle Connor, Gabe Velarde, Cole Perfetti taking another step. They'll supplement that with a few more goals scored. I think that we're going to see them hover right around that 3-4 spot in this division for sure.
Okay.
And hopefully, again, that means playoffs.
I would agree. I think they're definitely a playoff team. They just find their way into the playoffs. For the most part, that's what this team does. They find their way into the playoffs. Whether you think they're gonna make the playoffs or not, they just go and they do it. So, I think as long as they get Cole Perfetti signed before training camp. If they don't, that's disaster. That's the one disaster point that could happen that could have a really negative effect on the rest of their season. Okay, that is the Central Division. It's time to give our full breakdown, our full prediction on where you think teams will fall. Who's at the bottom?
Number 8, pretty easy. I think this is the Blackhawks.
Yes, I agree. Chicago Blackhawks, they're trying to be in the bottom. One more crap season for the Blackhawks. Number 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe this one might surprise you a little bit, but I'm gonna go Minnesota Wild here. Um,
Okay. Doesn't surprise me.
I just
Doesn't
again,
surprise me.
I don't have a lot of faith in Marco Rossi able to step up and be a number 1 center. And I think Zuccarello, he's getting up there in age. I think he's going to slow down. And I don't have a lot of faith in the goaltending. And usually for me, when I'm on the fence about a team and they have terrible goaltending or even subpar goaltending, it's just that's the decision maker right there. So for me, they're at number 7.
Okay, I'm gonna go St. Louis Blues.
Oh, okay, nice,
I think that their defense just not good enough,
fair.
and that's gonna hurt their goaltending, and it's gonna cause problems everywhere else because nobody can get the puck to those forwards, no matter how good some of those forwards may be.
Okay,
And then my number 6 is the Utah Hockey Club. I think they might get off to a fast start, but I don't think that their younger guys are gonna be quite there to put up a whole
yeah,
season. And I don't think that Vejmelka is going to be as good as he has been because now he's gonna be on a team with some expectations, and I think there's some fall off there.
okay. For me, at number 6, I'm going to go St. Louis Blues. I'm with you there. I think their defense takes a little hit. And ultimately, I think Drew Bannister, to me, is not the guy I think who's going to be able to take some of these veteran guys, these pieces they have, and just elevate them to the next level.
Okay. Where are you with number
5, I've
5?
got the Utah Hockey Club. I think they're
Okay.
going to have that Vegas effect come out of the gate, new club. I think it's just going to be exciting. Guys are going to be playing a little bit more amped up than they would on any other team. And I think that's going to translate to a few extra wins early on that just keep them maybe a few, like 2 or 3 points above St. Louis, in my opinion.
Okay. I agree. I think they have a quick start. I don't know how that translates to the end, but I agree they'll have a quick start. My number 5 is the Minnesota Wild. I think they have a shot at the playoffs because of guys like Boldy and Faber and younger and Rossi coming up.
I hope so.
Number 4.
Number 4, the Winnipeg Jets for me.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the Nashville Predators for me at number
Okay.
4. Like I said, I think they're just gonna float. They're not gonna care. Just get us into the playoffs. There'll be times where they're probably higher up in the division, and then they just pull it back a little bit at different points during the year, and I also think if anybody veteran players can sometimes go down for a little bit, get hurt, not as durable sometimes, so I think that could hurt them too, but ultimately, I think they find themselves securely in the first wild card spot.
Okay. Yeah, for me with the Jets at number 4, I think you're going to too reliant on your top line, Scheifele and Connor and Ehlers scoring all your goals. And then there's going to be question marks about, is Ehlers going to be there? Does Cole Perfetti resign? And so ultimately, I just don't think they're going to have enough juice to really go any higher, but they'll make the playoffs.
Okay. Yeah, I have Winnipeg at 3 because I think Winnipeg is they'll make a trade. I've no doubt they'll make a trade. Kevin Cheveldayoff has been making trades for second line centers since I was in diapers.
All right. Yeah. For me at number 3, same as last year, Colorado.
Okay.
I just think there's too many concerns up front as far as depth at the forward group and what you're going to get with Nichushkin and Landeskog returning. And I just don't have a lot of faith in Georgiev to have a bounce back year. And especially in a contract year, I think this is where he's feel a little bit of pressure. And this is maybe something new where now he's feeling it because last year didn't go so well. So I think he stumbles a little bit.
Okay. I'm going Dallas at number 2. I think Dallas has a little bit of the Tampa Bay vibe of we don't have to finish first to win the cup. So let's just and I know they don't think they finished first last year. They made it to the finals, but I think number 2, they'll just not float in the regular season, but they're just going to get done what they need to get done. They'll get home ice advantage and away they go.
Yeah.
And that leaves me Colorado at number 1.
For me at number 2, I've got Nashville. I just think they're just going to be too amped up with this new team. I think they're going to be exciting. I think they're going to play that whole misfits card and kind of want to go prove people wrong every single night. So that'll be exciting for me to watch. And I love what they did on the
Love
back end. More importantly, I think this will be a lot of fun to watch. But for Dallas at number one, my main reason I think you're going to see
Wait, do you have Nashville at number 2?
Nashville at two, yes, and Dallas at number one.
2, okay, you said okay,
I think with
okay.
Dallas, they've got a lot of youngsters like Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoven that are going to take leaps, play again bigger roles on this team with the departure of Joe Pop. But surprisingly, last year, what we didn't really talk about was really down years from Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz. And yeah, does that have anything to do with Joe Pop maybe moving off that top line and Wyatt Johnson coming in? Maybe, but I think you're going to have better years from them in a bounce back season for Montger.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, number 1, number 2,
Yeah,
it probably separated by a few
sure.
points, which may just be the head-to-head matchups between those 2 teams or what ultimately makes a difference there. Yeah, I also think that Colorado could go out and make a move as well, which if Nichushkin doesn't come back, there's your move, and it'll be interesting to see what that is. Okay, there's your Central Division preview. Let us know what you think at OT Hockey Talk on social media, and until our next, I guess we'll do someone in the East Metro next.
Sure, let's do it.
All right, Metropolitan Division next week. Enjoy what remains of the summer, football, all the good things, and hockey training camp coming in just a couple weeks. Can't wait. We'll talk to you guys soon.